Hi, Nick from Bradwell Manor Farm here, and I'm having one of my busier days as a livestock keeper as I've been sorting the sheep out today, and I'm now going to have a look at the bees. So it's a little bit later on in the day than I would have liked to do it. It's just about 4 o'clock here on a Sunday, and we are now in week 8. But the bees are still flying well, so I'm happy to do that. Both the split and the original Nuc look like they're doing fine in terms of flying, and it's warm enough here, so I'm happy to get inside and have a look. And in terms of what I'm looking for from today's inspection, the weather hasn't been great this week, so I want to make sure that they've got enough stores. I did have a peek at the Nuc with the original queen earlier in the week. If you remember, we put some one-to-one syrup in there and a contact feeder at the end of the last inspection. I checked them on Wednesday and they had eaten that dry, that syrup, so it was all gone. So I actually gave them some more on Thursday, so I'm going to see how much they've worked through that in the last few days and see if they need any more, and similarly just check the split and make sure that they've got enough stores as well. But I'm going to do that without going through them fully, because I don't want to disturb any queen cells that were, if you remember last week, there was a queen cell on the very outer frame that I checked when I was looking at the stores, so I don't want to damage any queen cells prematurely, although I haven't quite done the maths yet, but they may well have hatched. So I will check that outer frame just to sort of get a feel for the stores. I'll heft it to sort of see how heavy it is, and if I'm unsure, because they're not queen right, but they are very busy, as you can see, I will feed them as well. So mainly sort of making sure that they've got enough stores at the moment, and then obviously with the original queen in the Nuc, that she is sort of laying properly, eggs, larvae, brood in all stages, and all that sort of good stuff. So we'll get in there and have a look. Okay, as usual, a little bit of smoke before we start. So just underneath, a little bit of a waft across the entrance. But the first thing I'm going to do after I take off the bricks is just heft this. So I've got an idea from last week. It definitely feels lighter than it was last week, so they've probably used some of their stores, so I'll be thinking about potentially feeding them. Bees up here, bit of a smoke under the crown board. I don't think we'll have a mated queen in there yet, but we may have had an emerged queen, so we'll have a quick look at that. And then some bees up here using the bee space, but not loads drawn out. But what they have drawn out is full of stores. You can see that, so that's probably a half drawn out side of the frame, and that's maybe a quarter of the side on that side. So all stores. They're drawing that out slightly. This frame is well drawn out. And full of stores, and some pollen in there, which is a good sign. And they are drawing this out and filling this frames, so they're working across 5 frames up here. Which isn't a lot, but it isn't terrible. And also, you've got to, you know, these guys haven't got a laying queen, so they're not building up their numbers, so they probably don't need all that bee space, to be honest. But they are using it, and they're using some stores. So I expect this lower brood box is jam-packed with stores, to be honest, because there'll be very few, if any, eggs in there. So we'll just give them a little light smoke. I'm not planning on doing a very thorough inspection in here because I don't want to disrupt any queen cells or newly emerged queens, which is probably the point we're at now. But I do want to just check that they've got some stores down here. So dummy board out, gently take this frame out. So we can see here, look, these were two of the queen cells. There's another cell there, which this cell doesn't look very good, to be honest. But these look like they were, and that looks like it's uncapped. Well, they both are. This one, I would say, definitely has had a queen in it, and on this side as well, the emerged queen. So it's definitely queen cells that have had a I'm going to put it out there, queen cells that have had a virgin queen emerge, rather than being torn down and destroyed. Good stores in here. It's a well drawn out frame. Now, virgin queens are always difficult to spot because until they've mated, their abdomen is actually slimmer than the sort of mated queens that you're more more used to seeing. So it's unlikely I'm going to, be able to pick her out from the hive. So I'm not going to. I just want to make sure that we've got some sufficient stores across here, and to be honest, plenty of nectar in here. Yeah, so look, there's a queen cell, a big one, a good looking one, that actually I'm going to put this back in now because I don't want to disturb that in case that's the one that they're relying upon. So I'm going to very, very gently return that, and then very, very gently return that so as to not damage it. Dummy board back in. They look like they've got enough stores, to be honest. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 frames that I plucked out there have got, basically all stores, all nectar in there. There's some stores in that upper brood box and they're using that bee space. Actually, these guys are fine at the moment in terms of stores and space. Their numbers are going to be dwindling because they've had a break in their brood because they've got no laying queen. So I anticipate these numbers are going to start dropping, in which case they might not necessarily need that bee space, so we could potentially condense that down in the next week or two, depending upon how quickly this queen mates and how quickly they start building up again. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that this potentially that cell, but also maybe some of the other ones that have already hatched, that there's a virgin queen in there. Maybe she's off mating now because yesterday was the first good weather day, so perhaps they're out doing that today. So I'm going to put this back together and then leave them alone because they are where I'd expect them to be and they've got enough stores. So I'm not going to interfere too hard with these guys, and we can let them get back to doing what they're doing. And despite not necessarily having a queen, so not being queen right, these guys are actually quite chilled, which is a really good sign. So they're not too unhappy, so that can be quite indicative behaviour for beekeepers when bees are not queen right and they're unhappy and they're stressed because they don't have a queen laying and that kind of thing. These guys don't appear to be too stressed, which is really good. They're not aggressive, they're not attacking me. I think they feel that their queen cells are good and doing a good job, so fingers crossed that's a good sign for us. So, there we go, that's all back together. So, inspecting the original Nuc, the original queen. Again, bit of smoke in at the back and then into the mesh floor and across the front. As I said in the introduction, I checked these guys on Wednesday and re-fed them some syrup on Thursday with the contact feeder. So I'm hoping, right, so they've had all that again. That is empty, that feeder. Which means hopefully they've taken enough down now into the hive, into their stores, but I'll check that and then I can always feed them again. So these guys are a little bit antsy up here, which is why I'm giving them some smoke, and I will take off and lift up the crown board. Smoke in here, so I can see, just looking down into the super, where they had some stores and some brood before I put the queen excluder in. There's quite a lot of bees, so they're using the bee space, which is a good sign. I'm going to just have a quick look. They haven't drawn much out, so there's 6 frames at least that haven't been touched up here, but have a quick look now. So, oh yeah, that's a lie. So that frame is being drawn out, but there's not much in the way of stores in there. That frame's been drawn out, and there is stores in there, which is likely to be nectar they've collected mixed in with the sugar syrup, in all honesty. There's an absolute array of pollen colours in there, which if I didn't know better, I'd say that pollen's got off, but it wasn't in there the other day. So that is something that they've collected this week, which is a dark green colour pollen. Hopefully you can see that in there. It's quite cool to see, because normally it's just like yellow and orange, but dark green. Could be something like hawthorn, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, that's good. This is a nice full frame. Again, lots of stores in there, which is nice to see. So yeah, these guys have now got, I'd say these guys have now got plenty of stores up here anyway. This is one of the frames from last week that had some brood in it. So they're still tending those, and there's larvae in there, which are now like big larvae, so they're about to be capped, I'd have thought. There's some drones there, drone brood, but no new eggs, which is one of the key things I was looking for. So the queen, well, I found the queen and put her downstairs, but the queen hasn't been back up or anything like that, so that's as expected. And I'm just going to let these hatch, and then the bees can just backfill this super with honey. So yeah, so good amounts of stores up here. They're just drawing out that frame, which is frame 5. They've started on frame 4 on that side, but not on that side. So still got some good work to do up here. Checkerboard that in a little bit so they have the opportunity to work on it. But good to see they've got some stores. Other beekeepers might be able to tell, but I certainly can't tell whether that's the sugar syrup or nectar. So, you know, in terms of later season honey extraction, I need to be aware of that, because you know, I want good honey. I want like uncontaminated honey, and I obviously couldn't let these bees starve. That would not be an appropriate thing for a beekeeper to do. But now I really want them to sort of use that sugar syrup as, you know, as much as they can. So really, and I'm thinking now I may well mark those frames that have got sugar syrup in, or may have sugar syrup in, so that I don't extract those. I can just leave them for them later in the year. Okay, look, that's the queen excluder coming off. Quick check for the queen, but there's some burr comb there, which means that they're probably they often do that when they feel they've run out of room. And looking again at these bees, they look like they've completely failed to move outwards. So I might be a bit more aggressive with my checkerboarding. There is 1, 2, 3, 4 frames that definitely are untouched on the outside of that. So they're still quite a narrow, tall sort of brood chamber, if we include the super, which I now have stopped the queen from accessing with the queen excluder. So I need to make sure that they don't run out of room, or feel that they've run out of room, because they've just basically not moved across the rest of the frames that are available to them in the brood box. So I'm just going to check the queen's okay, and then I'll probably do a slightly more aggressive checkerboard to force them into using some of the frames that are here, that they seem to be ignoring. So because this queen, if you remember, was very keen to swarm. She's been on my, she's been built up quickly right from the off, and I can see there she's laid eggs in this burr comb, so she's like definitely feels like she's run out of room, but they've just not utilised everything I've given them. So I need to be a bit more aware of that now that I'm having a quick look. So I'll see if I can find the queen. Have my queen cage handy just in case I see anything unusual and I need to catch the queen. So eggs and stores on this one, lots of that green pollen. In fact, I've just seen the queen on this side, so just grab her now. There we go, got her there. Just pop her in the shade out of the way. So yeah, so eggs and stores on there, mostly stores on this side but some eggs. So that's like now the edge of the brood that's on frame. That's on frame 10. It's a pretty full brood frame, capped brood, so these guys will be emerging in the next week. They'll have more space to lay in then on that frame, and that's good because these guys have definitely got some fewer numbers than the split, so they could do with some more bees coming through, which is ace. This again is almost exclusively capped brood. There's some eggs around the edge there, but mostly capped brood. And then on this side, there is some larvae in here and some eggs at the bottom. So she's laying as much as she can across her brood nest. The bees just haven't fully brought out the worked across all of the space that they've got available, which, you know, to be fair, the frames that they've left are at the front of the hive. It's been quite a cold week with the rain and the wind, so maybe they've found it more difficult to draw them out because of that. This is maybe a third capped brood and then mostly eggs and larvae. So the queen's laying fine. I don't see any queen cells. There's a couple of play cups there, but not worried about them. But this is that sort of like point where the queen might decide, you know, point of building up where they might decide, oh, do you know what, we've not got enough room and we need to leave. Yeah, again, some capped brood, larvae. So that looks like all stores. So that's the edge of the brood frame of the brood nest rather, on frame 5. They've not touched some of these at all. Like that is frame 2. So I'm just going to pull that out. Going to do a little bit of rearranging of things in here. I've started drawing that out, but there's no eggs or anything in it, so pop that in there. So they've drawn out most of that side with some stores. And that side is half drawn out, so I might flip that round so they can start using that at the edge of the brood nest. That's the frame that's all stores at the edge of the brood nest, so they can have that. What I'm going to do, so I'm going to go frame of foundation, that frame of stores, another frame of foundation that's a little bit drawn out. Turn that frame of foundation around because that's mostly on that side, and then they can potentially start draw out this side and lay in there. I'm going to just do there, and then push that back. And that one. And then right in the middle of the brood nest, because it's going to force them to work on this. Pop a frame of foundation in there, and then close up the rest. Tempted to flip that around as well. So that's the very outer edge of the hive on frame 11. They've started working on this side, so if I turn that around, they'll carry on working on that side and they have actually started putting some nectar in there. But if I turn that around, then they're more likely to work on that side, and by doing that, I'm not affecting anything in terms of their brood nest. So they're not going to, for instance, miss a load of eggs that are on now the outside of the hive, because that's just stores. So I've turned that around, and that sort of is maximising the frames that they've started using at the edge of the brood nest and giving them a whole new one in the middle. So that should really give them half, 1, 2, maybe 3.5 frames to start working across a bit more easily there than they were before this. So checkerboarding, particularly putting a fresh brood frame into the middle of the foundation, can be a bit drastic. They don't like it, but it forces them to work it because it's in the middle of the brood nest, and that actually, in this case, is what these need. Otherwise, they're going to just keep feeling like they're running out of space, which we don't want, because then they might feel like it's swarming. Although I do think this is probably one of the last weekends where we'll see a lot of bees swarming, in all honesty. So my smoker's gone out, I think. Yeah, never mind. So I'm going to put that back together, dummy board in. I'm not going to feed them anymore because I think they've got enough stores in there, but I can obviously keep my eye on them and see if they need any more feeding over the next week. The forecast is better, so hopefully they'll have a bit more flying time. So Queen in her cage, let's make sure we remember to put her back in. So there she is, let's pop her in, there we go. She's just popped down in the middle, and then I'm just going to shake these bees off the queen excluder, get rid of some of this comb. Which is always super annoying because, like, I find cleaning queen excluders so difficult. So it's a pet hate of mine when they build comb directly on the queen excluder, because, as I say, I don't find it the easiest thing to clean. Clear the bees out of the way. Come on, bees. There we go. I hate to squash bees. I try and treat them as gently as I can. There's often a casualty or two, but it's better to be soft-handed rather than heavy-handed with them. The super can go back on top of the queen excluder. Good. And then, because I'm not going to feed them this week, I'm going to take the eek off. So I'm just going to give the crown board a quick shake. There's a bit of a mess in there, and then that can go back on top. Keep the eek out, roof on. That's it, done and dusted. So Queen looks happy. Done a bit of checkerboarding to force them to take on a bit more room, but feeding them's worked. Hopefully they can use some of those stores. Oh, that's right, I was just going to quickly mark those frames that have got honey in. So one, two, three, four, and five. Yeah, so those five now marked. I won't extract honey from those because most likely be a mix of foraged honey and sugar syrup, and personal preference, I would rather be selling 100% honey rather than contaminated honey. So that's that, all done. Good. Nice to see the queen settling back into a rhythm. Lots of eggs in there. Brood coming through. They just need a bit more space now for her laying, and I think she'll be happy. So we'll keep our eye on those over the next week. Okay, so I've just been looking outside of my split hive and noticed some dead bees on the floor. Now I think these are all worker bees, similar size abdomen and eyes and stuff, so that I'm pretty sure these are all female. But interestingly, just alongside these ones I found this bee, which I think is an unmated queen. She's got a much longer abdomen compared to the others, but she still isn't still like a full fat abdomen that you'd expect from seeing from a mated queen. So I think this is one of the virgins that has emerged from the queen cells that I was pointing out in the split hive, and I wonder if she's been rejected or indeed killed by another emerged queen perhaps. And so I'm pretty sure she's an unmated queen bee, which I've never sort of seen dead outside of a hive before, so I just thought I'd share that with you guys.